The glaze spray booth allows you to spray glazes onto your ceramic pieces in a special type of application that gives you more control than brushing or dipping the glazes. One reason you might want to do this is to preserve fragile drawings or paintings that you make on your pieces when you apply underglaze to your bisqueware and you want to put clear glaze over the top of those pieces. Another reason that you might want to use it is to blend one color of glaze into another color of glaze. Before you begin, you should be aware that there are some risks associated with using this equipment. You will be exposed to airborne particles of glaze. In order to protect yourself against breathing these in, you will be required to wear an N95 respirator, and you will also be required to wear eye protection to prevent the very porous surface of your eyes from absorbing airborne glaze. You also need to wear protective gloves when handling glaze at any time. You must follow all of the instructions in this video for using this equipment properly, including wearing all of the proper protective equipment and cleaning up the equipment fully after use. So the first step in using the glaze spray booth is to prepare your glaze. I'm in the glaze lab and I'm against the back wall here where you see this cupboard that says glaze spray gun. So this is where it's located. And this is what the glaze spray gun looks like. It hooks up to an air compressor that is attached to the spray booth. And we have these special containers here that screw on to the spray gun. This is where you're going to be holding your glaze. These containers fit this equipment specifically. So when you are finished using this equipment, make sure everything gets rinsed out, everything is clean, and all of it goes back into this cupboard. So I am going to get a container for my glaze. I'm going to get one extra container that will be filled with water. I will get a sieve, which has a very fine mesh on it to sieve my glaze before it goes into the container for the spray gun. And I will get a little funnel that will help direct the glaze into the spray gun container. When you're working with glazes, make sure to remember to wear gloves and make sure to remember to mix your glaze before you remove it from the bucket. I'm going to spray a smooth, clear glaze over one of my pieces. After your glaze is fully mixed, make sure to ladle it in a smaller container. It is very important to sieve your glaze before trying to use it in the spray booth. The spray gun's opening is really, really tiny. And if a particle that is too large gets sucked up through the straw and tries to go through the spray gun, it can easily get jammed. Sometimes there are particles within glazes that are just a little bit larger. Sometimes there are dried up bits of glaze that end up falling back into the bucket and they become particles that cannot go through the spray gun. So we have our spray gun container, and I'm going to put a little funnel over the top and then the sieve over the top of that. And then I will pour my mixed glaze into the sieve. You can hear that some of it is going through the sieve already, which is great. And I just like to use a little spatula here to help push some of that glaze down. So I'm going to push it and mix it until most of the glaze goes through the sieve. Most of the glaze did go through the sieve, but you can see little bits and chunks of things that would have stopped up the glaze spray gun, and it would have been very hard to clean that out. So the glaze that is in this container is ready to go. I'm going to go ahead and take all of these utensils over to the sink and wash and clean them out before I go any further. Now that I'm ready to go with the sieved glaze, I am going to carefully screw it onto the spray gun. I have another extra container that I have filled with water, and both of these are going to go out with me to the spray booth. If you are going to plan on spraying more than one type of glaze, you need to work with one glaze at a time. So prepare that glaze, prepare the gun, prepare the water, go outside, spray the glaze, come inside, clean it up, and then prepare your next glaze. This is our glaze spray booth. It's located outside in the kiln area. So this is what you'll see when you come outside. Notice that to the left of it, it is hooked up to an air compressor. One of the first things you want to do before you come out here and use it is to make sure that the air compressor is turned to the on position. It is not on and running right now because it is hooked up into a power strip. So the power strip connects it to the light that you see hanging from the spray booth, and it also connects it to a ventilation system that has a loud running fan behind it. The fan should be sucking up all of the extra air that is within the spray booth, and it will be sucking up some of the glaze that you are spraying. So all of those items are plugged into a power strip along the side of the spray booth mounted here. You want to make sure when you're ready to use the spray booth that you turn on the power strip, and you should immediately hear the fan engage from the spray booth. If you do not, you need to check and make sure that the switch that is connected to the fan is also turned to the on position. Next to the glaze spray booth on the right-hand side on the floor is a container that holds the PPE or personal protective equipment that you are required to wear if you are operating this device. You must wear eye protection and an N95 respirator mask for the glaze spray booth. There's an instruction posted on this container for exactly how to properly wear the N95 masks. So I'm all ready to start using the glaze spray booth. The object that I'm going to be spraying today is a dish where I painted a design on it in underglaze. I'm going to be spraying a clear glaze over the top because dipping the glaze would possibly deposit more glaze than I want on the surface, and brushing the glaze on might possibly smear the design that I've painted on already. So spraying is the method that I'm going to be using here. This is what the object looks like before it has any sprayed clear glaze over the top of it. The end of the air compressor hose has a little metal shaft on it, and this is the connection where you're going to connect the end of the spray gun. You want to take this collar and lower it, which will expose some ball bearings. Insert the end of the gun into that shaft. You can hear the air compressor engage, and then let go of the collar and make sure it moves all the way up to hold that gun in place. So right now you're connected to the air compressor, and when you spray, you're spraying glaze. I'm going to spray glaze on my object while moving it around to get an even layer. Continue to rotate the turntable while applying your glaze to create an even coat. Learning how much glaze to apply to your piece takes practice. When you see the surface of the glaze getting glossy and wet, back off on your spraying so that you do not create drips on your object. If you have a drawn or painted design on your object, you should not be able to see it at all after you have finished applying the sprayed glaze. When spraying is complete, wait until the object looks completely dry before handling it. Make sure you remember to turn it upside down and wipe off the bottom before placing it on the glaze cart. On this next object, I'm going to apply two different types of colored glazes that will fade into each other. The first glaze will be applied from the top of the form and will fade out towards the middle. When I'm finished spraying the first glaze, I will unscrew the container and remove it from the gun. I will replace it with a new container that is filled with fresh, clean water. I'll spray that water through the spray gun, which will clean out all of the first glaze from the hose and from all of the components of the gun. I then will remove the water container from the spray gun and take the other container filled with the first glaze back to the glaze lab. The glaze from the first container can be then returned to the proper bucket where it came from in the glaze lab. While I'm in the glaze lab, I will also take the time to prepare my second glaze by mixing it and sieving it into another container for the spray gun. I'm now ready to apply glaze number 2. I will concentrate it on the bottom of the pot by spraying it in that area and allowing some of the surrounding spray to blend into glaze number 1 that I applied to the rim or the top of that pot. When I'm finished applying glaze number 2, I will remove the container from the spray gun, reattach the container with the clean water. I will shake the spray gun and I will also spray that water through the hose to make sure that it is thoroughly cleaning out all of the glaze and not leaving any of the glaze trapped in the hose or the sprayer. Now I will remove my pot from the spray booth, being careful to check the bottom where we can see that there is a little bit of glaze that definitely needs to be wiped off the bottom before the pot is placed on the glaze cart. Now that I have returned both glazes to the glaze lab and put them in their corresponding buckets, I come back out to the spray booth, which is still connected to a container with clean water. I'm now spraying the clean water on the walls of the spray booth to help wash off the glaze. I also have a bucket of water with a sponge that is helping me clean the spray booth. I will use as much water as I need to, and I will squeeze the sponge out and direct the water down into the left-hand bottom side of the spray booth where there is a sink-like opening. All of the water should flow into that opening, which will be directed downwards towards a glaze waste bucket below. When you're cleaning this piece of equipment, you'll notice that you can spray water throughout the entire spray booth, and you can use a lot of water to clean up the glazes, and they should all sort of funnel down into this sink-like apparatus. They should be guided down to this hole. This hole should feed into a glaze waste bucket. There's a lot of glaze waste that is potentially generated when you're using the spray booth. Do not remove the bucket and do not empty the bucket. We will have to be managing this glaze waste in a special way with special disposal instructions. You should never dump that bucket down the sink. A lot of the materials that we use in the glaze lab are highly toxic, especially to our waterways. So we're going to reduce the amount of glaze that goes down the sink. If you ever find that the glaze waste bucket is full, please contact me immediately. My email is written on the side of the glaze waste bucket. The lab aides and myself will be monitoring this glaze waste bucket. Eventually the glaze waste will settle to the bottom and we will remove the standing water from the top to prevent it from getting too full. The very last steps of cleaning up the glaze spray booth involve wiping the water off of the top of the turntable so that it does not rust, and wiping down the eye protection that you are wearing, which is probably spattered with some amount of glaze. Please remember to return that to the proper receptacle next to the glaze spray booth. Finally, don't forget to turn off the power strip that powers the fan and the generator. Thank you. Happy glazing.